Oi, you know what time it is? You're tuned in listening to Dry That Aussie Metal Guy. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his content when it drops. And remember, stay brutal, you mad dogs. Roof!
G'day, how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy, here with crank.com and with Cranium Radio. So tonight, wherever you are in the world, is a great pleasure that I'm getting to have a chat with multi-instrumentalist. We'll put in there David Frazer, who's due to release his debut Synth-Wave album, Cruce Signatus. Also has another project, Pillaging Villagers, which is a really, really cool project to go check out as well. David, thank you for joining me, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute bloody pleasure, mate. First off, man, tell us your earliest musical memory.
Earliest musical memory. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, you got to really go back in time for that. Let's see.
It's always interesting to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a broad question, but let's see. Yeah, I mean, if we're just talking music, I've been a big Weird Al Yankovic fan for a long time, for my whole life. I've actually seen him 3 or 4 times in concert. One of my first concerts ever was Weird Al Yankovic at the Minnesota State Fair, and just really blew me away. I think it was maybe 9 or 10 or something like that, and just really, because I've been obsessed with Weird Al for years, memorizing all his music, listening to his tracks on tape and stuff. So yeah, that's definitely one of the earliest ones. If we're talking like heavy music, metal or punk or something like that, I'd say the first concert I went to that was kind of in those genres would maybe be like Lamb of God and Slipknot when I was like 16. So that would be a big difference between Weird Al and Lamb of God and Slipknot. But yeah, been into music for a long time.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of remember the old Weird Al Yankovic. My mum used to have record, and it was the Eat It track where it was like,
Oh yeah.
the Beat It, but it was Eat It, and my mum would play that sometimes when me and my sister wouldn't eat our bloody dinner and stuff like that. So I think that was kind of my early interactions with Weird Al Yankovic as a young child as well. So I think my taste kind of lands somewhere in between Weird Al Yankovic, Genesis, and Metallica, and we're somewhere in between there as well.
Oh yeah.
Tell us a little bit
Sounds like
about some of your musical influences and kind of people that have influenced and inspired you as a musician.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with this new project, Cruce Signatus. Kind of started to take a little bit of a turn from Pillaging Villagers. Pillaging Villagers really kind of really focused on immediacy and kind of force and speed, where every track was 3 minutes or less. It was really fast, aggressive stuff, more like a short form composition. But with Cruce Signatus, I'm really kind of doing kind of the opposite, going for more of like a long form composition. And there, I've really been influenced by everything from like symphonic composition, Beethoven, Dvorak, even just like cinematic composition, like Howard Shore, who did Lord of the Rings, Basil Polydoros, who did Conan the Barbarian. So I really like the kind of cinematic soundtracks that use these sort of keynote motifs, or these sort of like themes that everyone recognizes from the Star Wars soundtrack or things like that kind of recur throughout a piece. I wanted to kind of experiment with that within heavy music. So beyond just the sort of symphonic or cinematic stuff, I'm influenced by synthwave artists like Ghost or Perturbator or Dance with the Dead, as well as like just metal in general. I mean, I try to take a lot from just every genre, just kind of focus on what metal does really well. So I kind of use like doomy stuff from like Candlemass or Swallow the Sun, or kind of like more pummeling war metal like Amon Amarth, or even just like industrial riffing like Rammstein or Static X. So I try to like take stuff from pick and choose from things that I really connect with, and kind of put them into the project where I didn't really feel like I was bound by any particular genre. So it's really just a wide array of different artists. Even going back to like the 80s, you mentioned Genesis, like the use of synthesizers, in that type of stuff. So Genesis, Rush, even stuff like Van Halen or Journey, that kind of use synth as more of like a lead instrument back in the 80s. So it's a pretty wide range.
Yeah, definitely. And with this project, the Synth-Wave and that, tell me a little bit about how, like, I know that with this project, we will talk more about how you've collaborated with the independent animators and illustrators to bring the story of this to life. And the film clip for the Generator Home is just absolutely unreal. It goes hand in hand with the song. It's just absolutely amazing. But before we get there, tell me a little bit about how you go creating these stories and these songs through these audio, these mediums. Instead of, there's no lyrical content, it's an instrumental pieces, so you got to create this story without the use of lyrics as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was really the goal was to kind of start with the story and develop the music to emphasize particular moments within the story. So the entirety of Cruce Signatus, which is 4 total albums, the first of which is being released now, but I'll release another one every year or so for the next 4 years. But that's an entire feature-length composition, which is based on a screenplay, essentially, that I wrote, that includes screen directions, all sort of aspects of where the music is going. And I just use the music as sort of a narrative technique or a narrative device. So when I worked with Vincent Kings, who did the animation and the illustration for Gehenna and Tartareum, Tartareum, is I worked with him. I gave him the screenplay. I said, here's what needs to happen at these moments in the music, and kind of use the music as kind of like, points to, emphasize, okay, well, here he's going to descend into hell, or in this part he's going to, see the visions of heaven, or here he's going to be, plagued by visions of the saints, or what. He's got this. The music itself is meant to accentuate what you're seeing on the screen, and that's how it's able to kind of be, in that way, it's kind of a soundtrack as well as the primary like narrative device for the piece or for the film. So it's really started with the story.
Yeah, it definitely, dude. Because I had to listen to this album, or it's like long tracks. You can call it album, EP, whatever you want, or first chapter, or first part to the narrative and the story that you're telling. But I listened to it on its own first, without any music, and I kind of got the idea of it in my head. And then I've chucked on the film clip for the first one and watched it, and it kind of all made sense to me, like a little bit, like telling the story kind of matched up so well with this track. You create a narrative in your head, but then you kind of see the animation that goes along with it, and it confirmed a little bit of the narrative I had going on. But having this piece, this artistic piece, and the artist, the illustrator, and the man kind of coming in there, I kind of got my story out of it. But tell me a little bit about what that first part is, and that's part of the story is to this whole story.
Yeah, absolutely. So the story of
There we go. Okay. I got the story. We got the start there. Just the first bit. If we go from the very start again. Wait up. Check your audio.
Sorry about that.
Technical difficulties aside, let's get into that first part of the story.
That's my bad. Yeah, absolutely. So the story itself it's about essentially it follows the quest of an impoverished knight of the First Crusade. His name is Pierre Lebatard, and it comes from the actual annals of the Crusade. So there were records kept of individuals that went on crusade, and I was reading through a history of the Crusades when I was kind of writing this piece, and I came across this name, and all that's known about him, he's this really minor lord from southern France. All that's known about him is he went on crusade, quote, to expunge his grievous sins, and that's all that's known about him. And it kind of fascinated me that the only thing that could have been known about someone from this time, where, I mean, the knightly class, they were kind of their whole life was based on violence. So for this guy to come out as, this guy is a particularly big sinner, I was like, okay, what's the deal with this guy? So I kind of constructed this narrative around him where his quest to, go to the Holy Land to expunge his sins is kind of like a redemptive journey, as well as kind of an exploration of the, brutality and viciousness of the era of the Crusades. So the first piece that you see is him returning from the winter or the summer campaign. All knights would go on campaign with their feudal lords during the good months or during the nice weather, and then they return home for the winter. So he's returning to southern France. He's visiting a cathedral to kind of, reckon with what went on during the campaign, kind of like he's struggling with the sins of, because if you're a knight, you're raised in this sort of, almost totalitarian religious society where, every aspect of your life is governed by the Christian faith. But in addition, your whole life is governed by the need to commit violence and to engage in violence on a regular basis. So that kind of duality of the mind is kind of what's plaguing him in the church. So you see him struggling with these visions of being judged by Christ, judged by God, judged by the saints, as he's reliving these moments from his campaign. And, as a result, kind of sees himself, because not only are you kind of conflicted with this, this dichotomous self, but you're also facing the prospect of impending doom at any time. Anytime you can get killed in battle. So that whole thing just kind of really struck me as like, how do people live with these two forces pulling on them? And that's really the kind of suffering that he's feeling in this moment. So the first piece really just sets the tone for the kind of dark themes that are going to be explored in the first chapter. Beyond that, we'll see him grow, we'll see him change, we'll see his arc. But this first chapter is really about just kind of setting almost like the foundation for the villain's journey, right? He's, as opposed to a hero's journey, he starts off as a villain.
As a villain's journey. And you see that when he's like in the church, kind of, I don't know, I love how music like this makes you kind of think yourself, and it doesn't it must be fun as a musician to create music that isn't exactly grabbing the listener by the hand and leading him on. They can kind of grab these little references to himself, and you kind of see him in the church and he's praying, he's down on his hands and knees and he's praying to the Lord, the church, and you see the different saints in the stained glass windows and that. And you kind of see him reflecting on the memories, and then you see the devil pop up, and you as you said, this dichotomy between good and evil. It's like, yeah, I'm doing all this for the Lord and all these different saints and that, but I'm also creating this evil. Maybe I'm kind of working for the devil, or maybe the devil's kind of pulling these strings as well in between. And I think I'm doing stuff for the Lord, and you see everything kind of crumble away, and then the devil's kind of in there as well. And it's so well done. I'm actually really looking forward to the different animations that come along with the story as well. What's your plans with this? Because I know you are collaborating with these artists as well, with Vincent Kings as well, and you had Chris Anderson do the cover art. It must be really exciting for you as the musician, but also as an artist, to be able to tell these stories through these different mediums. What's your plans going forward with it all?
Yeah, great question. So every track on not only this album, but the forthcoming albums will be a different animator and illustrator. So I'm going to work with a different artist for each one. And it really kind of, it goes back to, I've always been a big fan of Heavy Metal Magazine, if you're familiar, and sort of the anthology style of storytelling, where you're using different artists, using different interpretations to tell a story through a series of vignettes. So every track kind of takes a different part of this journey that our main protagonist takes. So what I'm hoping to do is release these as I develop them, going forward, to the point where eventually I'll have actually a feature-length film that compiles all these different pieces together into a single narrative. But they'll be kind of be released as as I work on them. They're a time-consuming thing that really takes a lot of effort and a lot of commitment to get done. And I'm working on them, kind of ad hoc. But really the first one here is I just wanted to see whether people would respond to it, and just what the direction of the project should be, whether I should release more animation first or release more music first. But the goal is to have the whole feature-length composition have animated videos associated with it.
Yeah, to go hand in hand, because as I said, you listen to it. I've been coming into more and more synthwave. I actually interviewed Mercury from Priest and that, and I come across Perturbator a few years ago when they kind of toured Australia. So it's funny how these things kind of come in circles. Then I got your email about your synthwave project, and it's really interesting, as I just mentioned, about listening to these albums and kind of creating these stories in your own head and kind of getting lost in them as well, but also, you know, kind of when you do the artwork along with it and then listening to it, it does kind of create this whole story to it. And it is quite a different departure from your kind of last project as well, Pillaging Villages. So it's kind of, and tell us a little bit about that, kind of what inspired you to get this Synth-Wave project going? What was the kind of inspiration behind it all?
Yeah, I think it was mostly just like I kind of said before. Pillaging Villagers was a really, kind of a lifelong, passion project for me. It was something that I've been working on for a long time and kind of put to the side and kind of picked up. But what it really is it's a very, it's exploration of sort of force and speed and power, right? Every track is very rap. There's not a single, track on the album that isn't at 180 beats per minute. It's more immediate. It's focused on just kind of a punch in the face. And what I really wanted to do with Synth-Wave, and what I think Synth-Wave does really well, is kind of add more subtlety. I wanted to have more layers. I wanted to have more, moments where, you can kind of just let the music wash over you. There's parts in even just the first track in Gehenna Tartareum where there's, you start with just a simple synth line or a simple bass line and you stack these melodies and, whereas Pillaging Villagers or a lot of metal nowadays is a very, you have this sort of verse chorus, composition. I wanted to kind of explore a more linear style that kind of took and just take something and stack it, and then you get to this climax and you bring it back down and then you build it back up again, using these sort of keynote melodies that recur not just within a particular song but across an entire composition that are modulated in different ways that change time signatures, change time. Like there's kind of this idea of playing with almost long form music composition similar to what you'd have, see with like a, I don't know, with like a television series, like a Sopranos or a Game of Thrones, where they can kind of develop these stories over a long period of time instead of it having to be a short single episode thing. So really those are the kind of things that really got me inspired to kind of explore more with Synthwave. And plus it's early. It's a very new genre, and the boundaries of it aren't really defined like with metal. Metal is like, at this point, it's been done. Pretty much everything out there has been done and classified and genreified. Whereas synthwave, you can really just kind of do your own thing. I wanted to kind of take synthwave and kind of take it to the next level of bringing heaviness into it, bringing metal into it. A lot of artists are doing that to a degree. But I wanted to see how far I could push it. So those are kind of the big kind of factors that inspired me.
Yeah, definitely. And you did mention classical music before, which I absolutely bloody love. Kind of goes hand in hand. I feel like sometimes, and the good thing about synthwave is you can have the metalheads come along, but you've also got this different audience as well. When you're making these soundtracks, David, like these tracks, how long does it take you? Tell me a little bit about how you compose them. What kind of, how long it takes you, what instruments you're playing, the whole composition process.
I would say I've been working on the entirety of Cruce Signatus for about 2 years. So I picked it up right about the time as I was promoting Pillaging Villagers after I'd kind of worked on that for about a year and a half. For the last 2 years, it's been really consumed with this project. My composition style is very iterative, I would say. I kind of work in a way where I'll really focus on the kind of keynote melodies. So, for example, if you're looking at the first track, Gehenna Tartareum, it's that at the end of the track when it kind of everything kind of just builds up to this kind of moment, and you hear that kind of soaring, really kind of noticeable melody. I kind of start with those, and I'll compose them in, either in just using my synthesizer or on, something like Ableton Live or even within Guitar Pro, which is a program that I use. And then it's just a series of kind of creating the layers that build up to it. And I on my phone I kind of start with, I'll just kind of, come up with a melody whether I'm in the shower or riding my bike or, making dinner or something. And I'll just record it and I'll be like, okay, I've classified. I probably have like, 300 or 400 just 30-second, clips of me singing a melody. Some of those get evolved into something that I use, some of them don't. But really it's about finding the right melody for the mood that you're trying to convey. I've got, sort of triumphant, glorious melodies. I've got these sort of dark, brooding things. I've got these aggressive, sort of melodies along those lines. And that's really kind of just getting yourself in the mood, getting the listener in the mood to for the experience that you're trying to take them through.
Yeah, and then how do you like sit back and go, okay, then I've got this story I'm trying to say, and then I've got all these different tracks I want to kind of fit in there. It must be fun trying to compose that also and to convey this story that you're trying to tell, and the ultimate end goal of it. You've got in your head a narrative that you're trying to tell as well. So
yeah, and the interesting thing is that I really rely on the music to kind of form touch points in the story, right? So these keynote melodies that recur, they're thematic. So like when you hear a particular melody, obviously in my mind I see where it's headed, but as I release more of these videos, you'll see certain melodies are sort of associated with certain themes, certain characters, just like they would in a cinematic composition. So
very emotive,
being able
and you
to
feel the emotion of the music. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you feel, just like in the track you've seen, you feel the build up, right? The drums pick up, leading to this kind of like this climax that kind of drives the point home, or emphasizes a key point in the narrative. But yeah, it's being able to kind of use music to emphasize the visual aspect. That's really key, and planning out kind of where things were going to be, taking these melodies that I would write and be like, okay, that's going to recur here. That's going to, modulate here to kind of show a change in that theme. Using the music in that way as a narrative device is really something that I've kind of, I don't want to say pioneered, but something that I'm really like, it makes this project really unique. And hopefully that'll come through when the animation, is more developed.
Definitely. I can't wait to hear more of it. And the good thing about like this, I've been sitting here gaming flat out. I love like listening to this as well, like good soundtracks to video games as well. I've noticed like that's probably why I really connected to Synth-Wave, because I hear a lot of Synth-Wave and I kind of think in my head like video games and these narratives they're trying to tell through their audio as well. So it really does come across really, really good. So we're looking at probably one every year at this stage. This first one's going to drop 7th of June. Where's the best place people can get along and support you? Because I know everything kind of goes on Spotify, but for something like this, you kind of want people to get along and support the whole project as well, not just the digital audio platform. These, you know what I'm on about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the best way is to just connect on Bandcamp or on
Yes.
better yet Patreon. So I have, Bandcamp is I will keep all the followers updated on all progress with the project, anything that's happening, I'll make sure to notify through there. And then Patreon as well. One of the things I'm trying to do with this is make it as crowdfunded as I can.
Yep.
If there's anyone who's listened to it and they'd like to see more of this animation put out more quickly, becoming a patron or joining on there is a great way to do it. Obviously, no pressure to buy or to give or anything along those lines. But if you are interested in seeing more of the animation come through, I would definitely encourage you to go there. And all patrons will get advance notice of stuff. I'll share whatever I'm coming up with in new projects or anything like that, if folks are interested. So definitely go through Bandcamp, Patreon, and then just the YouTube channel as well, is where
YouTube.
I'll post all my
People, and
I'll
hit
post
the
all my new
fucking like
videos.
and subscribe. Get over there and give him a
That's
like and
right. That's right.
subscribe. It's got to be, that's one of the fucking infuriating things. Like watching people, like you see so many hundreds of views or so many thousands of views, then you look at their subs and you're like, come on, people. Just hit the fucking
Yeah.
the like, the little bell. It
Yeah.
goes a long way, and
Yeah.
that's a good way to keep up. And it's it costs nothing, and it is a really great way to support. And platforms like Bandcamp, like I love fucking Bandcamp. I've got like 600 and plus albums over on there. I'm always
Oh, yeah.
buying stuff. I think it's a great way to support it. And like, yes, Spotify has its positives. Listen to it on Spotify if you must. But if you like an artist and you really want to support them, get along and support the Patreon, support the Bandcamp, support the YouTube channel, because yous are the ones that are going to keep this scene going and going bloody strong. David, this has been an absolute pleasure, mate, to get to chat to you, find out more about your projects. Cruce Signatus, I hope I didn't annihilate it. And Pillaging Villagers, mate.
No.
I look forward to what is to come, mate. Any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there, mate?
Just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. It's a real pleasure. I definitely appreciate all you do to support the scene and support independent artists. So keep up the great work.
Awesome, mate. Absolute bloody pleasure. Thank you very much. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, cheers. Take care.
Oi, you're tuned in to Jai That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.